My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 41 years old, and I'm a financial advisor from Charlotte, North Carolina. 3 months ago, I noticed my younger sister Sophie acting strangely, secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, lying about where she'd been. I was worried she was in trouble, so I did what any concerned older sister would do. I followed her. I watched her walk into the Ritz-Carlton downtown on a Tuesday afternoon. I watched her take the elevator to the 8th floor. And when I followed her down that hallway and saw which room she entered, my stomach dropped. Because I recognized that room number. I'd been texting my husband all day, and he'd told me he was in a business meeting at the Ritz. Room 847. The same room my sister just walked into. I stood outside that door for 10 minutes, my hand shaking as I raised it to knock. When my husband opened the door, shirtless, with my sister visible behind him adjusting her clothes, something inside me shattered completely. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because when I pushed past him into the room, I found their laptop open on the desk. Open to a document titled, Lauren's Life Insurance, Final Timeline. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to kill me, stage it as an accident, and split my $3 million life insurance policy. Before I tell you how I used that open laptop to photograph everything, how I gathered evidence of their murder plot, and how I sent them both to prison for conspiracy to commit murder, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop your location in the comments. Because this story might save your life. Let me take you back to the beginning. I met my husband, Marcus Mitchell, in 2012 when I was 33 years old. I was 6 years into my career as a financial advisor at a prestigious wealth management firm in Charlotte, building a reputation for helping high-net-worth clients protect and grow their assets. Marcus was 35, working as a commercial real estate developer with several successful projects throughout the Carolinas. We met at a charity gala. Both of us were sponsors, both ambitious professionals in our prime. "You're Lauren Mitchell," he said, approaching me at the silent auction. "I've heard about you. They say you're the best financial advisor in Charlotte." "They're very kind," I replied. "And you're Marcus Wright. They say you're transforming Charlotte's downtown skyline." "We should talk," he said with a smile that made my pulse quicken. I could use someone smart managing the money I'm making from all these projects. That conversation led to a professional relationship that quickly became personal. Marcus was everything I'd been looking for. Intelligent, ambitious, successful, but also warm and funny. He understood the demands of my career because his was equally demanding. We'd have late-night dinners after site visits and client meetings, talking about our dreams, our goals, our plans for the future. 6 months into dating, Marcus met my family, including my younger sister Sophie, who was 26 at the time, working as a marketing coordinator and still finding her way in life. Sophie and I had always been close despite our 7-year age gap. After our parents died in a car accident when I was 25 and Sophie was 18, I'd become more than her sister. I'd become her guardian, her mentor, her best friend. I'd put her through college with my inheritance, helped her get her first apartment, been there for every milestone. "Your sister is amazing," Marcus told me after that first family dinner. "The way she talks about you, the gratitude, the love. You raised her after your parents died. That's incredible." "She's my baby sister. I'd do anything for her." That loyalty, that devotion, it's one of the things I love most about you, Lauren. Marcus proposed a year after we met, on a weekend trip to the mountains. He'd rented a beautiful cabin, planned a romantic dinner, and got down on one knee with a stunning diamond ring. "Lauren, you're the most brilliant, driven, compassionate woman I've ever met. You built a career, raised your sister, and still somehow made room for me in your life. Will you marry me and let me spend forever trying to deserve you?" I said yes with tears streaming down my face. Sophie screamed with joy when I called to tell her. "Oh my God, Lauren, Marcus is perfect for you. This is everything you deserve." We married in October 2013 at the Biltmore Estate, a beautiful autumn ceremony with Sophie as my maid of honor. During her toast, Sophie said, "Lauren has been my mother, my sister, my best friend, and my hero all rolled into one. When our parents died, she could have resented being stuck with a teenager to raise. Instead, she loved me unconditionally and made sure I had every opportunity. Marcus, you're not just gaining a wife, you're gaining a family. And I'm so grateful Lauren found someone as wonderful as she is." Everyone cried. Marcus hugged Sophie and said, "I'm honored to be your brother-in-law. Lauren's family is my family now." Our first 5 years of marriage were everything I'd hoped for. Marcus's real estate business thrived. He was developing luxury condominiums, mixed-use buildings, and commercial spaces throughout Charlotte. My client base expanded as word spread about my expertise in wealth preservation and estate planning. We bought a beautiful house in Myers Park, traveled extensively, and started talking about having children. Sophie became part of our life in ways I loved. She'd come to our house for Sunday dinners. Marcus would give her career advice and helped her get a better job at a marketing firm he worked with. The three of us would take vacations together. Skiing in Colorado, beaches in the Caribbean, wine tasting in Napa. We were a family, and I felt blessed to have both my husband and my sister so close. In 2015, our lives got even better. I was promoted to senior vice president at my firm with a substantial raise and profit-sharing package that pushed my income to over $400,000 annually. Marcus closed his biggest development deal yet, a $50 million project downtown that would make him wealthy beyond our wildest dreams. "We made it, Lauren," he said the night we signed the papers for his project. "We're exactly where we wanted to be. Successful, secure, together." "I couldn't have done it without you," I told him. "You've supported every crazy work hour, every demanding client, every stressful deadline. That's what partners do. We build each other up." That same year, we updated our estate plans and life insurance. My financial planner training made me acutely aware of the importance of protection. We each took out $3 million life insurance policies, enough to maintain our lifestyle if something happened to either of us, enough to provide security for the children we were planning to have. "It's morbid to think about," Marcus said as we signed the paperwork. "But you've taught me that smart people plan for worst-case scenarios." "Exactly. God forbid something happens to either of us, but if it does, the other will be financially secure." What I didn't know was that Marcus was already calculating what my death would mean to him financially. That the life insurance policy I thought was protecting our future was actually giving him a motive to end my life. Sophie's life was flourishing too. In 2016, she got engaged to a man named David, and Marcus and I were thrilled. But 6 months before the wedding, David broke it off, leaving Sophie heartbroken and humiliated. I held her while she cried, helped her cancel wedding plans, and supported her through the grief. "I thought he was the one," she sobbed in my arms. "I thought I'd finally have what you and Marcus have." "You will, sweetie. It just wasn't meant to be with David. The right person is still out there." Marcus was equally supportive. He'd take Sophie out for dinner to cheer her up, text her motivational messages, treat her like the little sister he'd never had. "Your family, Sophie," he'd tell her. "We're here for you no matter what." Looking back now, I can see that's when everything changed. That's when Marcus and Sophie's relationship shifted from familial to something darker. But at the time, I just saw a devoted husband supporting my grieving sister. I saw a kindness where there was actually predation. In 2017, I inherited a substantial sum when my mother's elderly sister, my Aunt Catherine, passed away and left me her estate. After taxes and fees, I received $2.5 million, which I immediately invested wisely per my own professional advice. The inheritance was placed in trusts and accounts that only I could access, a standard practice I recommended to all my clients to protect inherited assets. Marcus seemed happy about the inheritance. "This is amazing, Lauren. You can retire early if you want, or we can invest in more properties. The possibilities are endless." But I noticed something subtle shift in him after the inheritance, a coldness that would appear and disappear. Questions about my estate planning that felt less like curiosity and more like calculation. "If something happened to you, does that money go to me automatically? Or would Sophie inherit since she's your only living relative?" "We're married," I reminded him. "Everything goes to you as my spouse. Sophie gets a small bequest, but the bulk goes to you." He nodded, satisfied. I thought he was just making sure our estate planning was solid. I didn't realize he was planning my death. By 2018, Marcus and Sophie had become incredibly close. Closer than I'd ever been comfortable with, honestly. But I told myself I was being paranoid. They'd text constantly, have inside jokes, meet for lunch without telling me. When I'd mention it, they'd laugh it off. "Marcus is like the brother I never had," Sophie would say. "Sophie's like the little sister I always wanted," Marcus would echo. I believed them because why wouldn't I? These were the two people I loved most in the world. They loved me. They'd never betray me. Except they were already betraying me. They'd been having an affair for over a year. And they'd been planning my murder for 6 months. But I didn't know any of that yet. In my mind, I had a perfect life, a successful career, a loving husband, a close relationship with my sister, financial security, and a future full of possibilities. I was blessed, lucky, happy. I had no idea my husband and sister had decided I was worth more dead than alive. That they'd calculated the insurance payout, the inheritance, the assets, and decided murdering me was easier than divorce or honesty. That they'd been researching methods, planning timelines, and setting up their future together. A future that didn't include me because I'd be dead. The woman I'd been, trusting, loving, optimistic, was about to be destroyed. Because when you discover that the two people you love most in the world have been sleeping together and planning your murder, something inside you breaks that can never be fully repaired. The first sign something was wrong came in January 2024, about 11 years into my marriage. Marcus started being secretive about his phone in ways he never had been before. We'd always had open access to each other's devices, no passwords between spouses, complete transparency. But suddenly, Marcus was changing his passcode weekly, keeping his phone face down constantly, and taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. "Why do you need your phone in the shower?" I asked one morning. "I'm expecting an important call about the Tryon Street project. Can't miss it," he said quickly. "At 6 a.m. on a Saturday? Real estate development is 24/7, Lauren. You know that." It was plausible, but something about his defensiveness bothered me. Still, I pushed the concern aside. Marcus was under a lot of pressure, with multiple projects in various stages of development. Of course, he'd be more protective of his phone. The second red flag appeared when I noticed Sophie was also being secretive about her phone. We'd text throughout the day, sharing memes, discussing dinner plans, checking in on each other's lives. But suddenly, her responses became sparse, delayed, or non-existent. When we'd have lunch, she'd keep her phone face down and wouldn't check it even when it buzzed repeatedly. "Popular today?" I teased when her phone buzzed for the 5th time. She grabbed it quickly and silenced it. Just work stuff, nothing important. Everything okay? You seem distracted lately. I'm fine, Lauren. Just busy, you know how it is. The third incident should have alarmed me more. In February, I came home early from a client meeting and found Marcus on the phone in our home office. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call. Who is that? A contractor, boring construction stuff. He kissed my cheek. Why are you home early? Client rescheduled. Marcus, I'm not trying to pry, but you've been really secretive lately. Is something wrong? His face arranged itself into concerned confusion. Secretive? Babe, I'm just busy. I have 3 major projects in critical phases. I'm stressed, not secretive. Okay. I just want to make sure we're okay. We're perfect. I love you. Don't create problems where there aren't any. That phrase, don't create problems, felt dismissive, but I let it go. I didn't want to be the paranoid wife who invented issues. The 4th red flag came when I discovered Marcus had taken out a secret credit card. I found the statement in his car, a card I didn't know existed with charges for expensive dinners, hotel rooms, and jewelry I'd never received. Marcus, what is this? I showed him the statement. He barely glanced at it. Oh, it's for business expenses. I keep them separate for tax purposes. My accountant suggested it. Business expenses at the Ritz-Carlton? At French restaurants? For jewelry? Client entertainment, Lauren. I have to wine and dine investors. The jewelry was a gift for a client's wife. Relationship building. This is standard real estate development stuff. You never mentioned this card. Because it's boring financial logistics. Should I consult you before every business decision? He was getting annoyed now, which made me feel guilty for questioning him. No, of course not. I'm sorry. It's fine. Just trust me, okay? I know what I'm doing. But I did something I'd never done before. Something that violated our trust, but my instincts were screaming. I logged into his credit card account using the number on the statement and our joint password pattern. The charges were disturbing. Hotel rooms every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months. Always the same hotel. Always the same suite. Room 847 at the Ritz-Carlton. The 5th red flag involved Sophie. In March, I invited her to a spa, Kenang, something we used to do monthly but hadn't done in a while. She declined. I can't, Lauren. I'm busy that day. What day? I didn't tell you which day yet. She fumbled. I mean, I'm busy in general. Work is crazy. Can we rain check? Sophie, we haven't spent quality time together in months. Is everything okay? Did I do something to upset you? No. God, Lauren, why do you always assume something's wrong? I'm just busy. People get busy. Stop being so needy. The word needy from my sister, who I'd raised, supported, loved unconditionally, felt like a slap. Sophie had never spoken to me that way before. I'm not being needy. I miss my sister. Well, your sister has her own life now. We can't be joined at the hip forever. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. What had changed? Why was Sophie pulling away? The 6th incident came in April when I found a receipt in Marcus's jacket pocket, a receipt for a diamond bracelet from Tiffany's, an expensive one, $15,000. I'd never seen this bracelet. Marcus, did you buy me a bracelet? What? No. Why? I showed him the receipt. This was in your jacket. His face showed panic for just a second before smoothing over. Oh, it's for my mother. Her birthday is coming up. Your mother's birthday is in October. It's April. I'm planning ahead. Is that a crime? It's a $15,000 bracelet, Marcus. That's a lot to spend on your mother. I can afford it. I just closed a major deal.
What's with the interrogation, Lauren? Are you going through my pockets now? That's pretty controlling. He turned it on me, made me the problem, and I backed down feeling guilty. But I knew his mother. I knew she wasn't the type to want a $15,000 bracelet. This gift was for someone else. The seventh red flag was the most troubling. In May, I overheard part of a phone conversation Marcus was having in the garage. I'd come home and he hadn't heard my car pull up. His voice carried through the open window. 2 more months, maybe 3. The new life insurance policy should be active by then. No, she has no idea. She's completely trusting. The money's substantial, $3 million from insurance, plus her inheritance investments, which are worth about $3.5 million now, plus our joint assets. We're talking close to $8 million total. I know it's risky, but if we make it look like an accident, there's no investigation. I froze in my driveway. Was Marcus discussing my life insurance, my inheritance, making what looked like an accident? A cold dread settled over me, but I immediately rationalized. Maybe he was discussing a client's situation. Maybe it was a hypothetical conversation for a development deal. There had to be an explanation. When I walked into the garage, Marcus quickly ended the call. Hey babe, didn't hear you pull up. Who is that? Investor. Boring finance talk. How was your day? I wanted to confront him about what I'd overheard, but fear held me back. Fear of sounding paranoid. Fear of damaging our marriage with accusations. Fear that if I was right about what I'd heard, confronting him might put me in danger. The 8th red flag involved both Marcus and Sophie together. I saw them having lunch at a restaurant downtown. I'd driven past on my way to a meeting and glimpsed them through the window. They were sitting very close, leaning toward each other, and as I watched, Marcus reached across the table and took Sophie's hand. Not in a brotherly way, in an intimate way. I pulled over and sat in my car, shaking. There was an innocent explanation. There had to be. Maybe Sophie was upset about something and Marcus was comforting her. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. I called Sophie. Hey, where are you? At work. Why? Just checking in. Want to grab dinner this week? Maybe. I'll have to check my schedule and get back to you. She was lying. She was at a restaurant with my husband, and she'd just lied to my face. I called Marcus. Hey, how's your day going? Exhausting. I'm at a job site dealing with contractor issues. Probably won't be home until late. Another lie. He was at a restaurant holding my sister's hand. The 9th red flag came when I decided to check our credit card statements more carefully. Hidden among the mundane charges were regular payments to the same hotel, the Ritz-Carlton. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months. The charges were always coded as business entertainment, but the pattern was too consistent, too regular, too deliberate. I cross-referenced the dates with Sophie's calendar, which we'd always shared on our phones for coordinating family dinners. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd had her calendar blocked as appointments or meetings. The same days Marcus was charging hotel rooms. They were meeting, regularly, at a hotel, for 6 months. The final red flag came in early June when I found an airline confirmation in Marcus's email. He'd left his laptop open and I saw the notification. 2 tickets to Bora Bora for mid-August. Marcus Mitchell and Sophie Harding, my sister's maiden name that she'd never changed after her broken engagement. My husband was planning a romantic vacation to Bora Bora with my sister. All the red flags, all the lies, all the strange behavior suddenly crystallized into one devastating truth. Marcus and Sophie were having an affair. And based on that overheard phone conversation about insurance and accidents, they might be planning something much worse than just betrayal. I needed proof. Not suspicions, not overheard fragments, not hotel receipts that could be explained away. I needed undeniable evidence, and I needed to know if my worst fears were true. Were they just having an affair? Or were they actually planning to kill me for my money? On a Tuesday morning in mid-June, I made a decision. Would follow Sophie. I would see where she went, who she met, what she was hiding. And I would find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The following Tuesday, June 18th, I told my office I had client meetings all day and would be unavailable. Then I parked outside Sophie's apartment building at 1:30 p.m. and waited. I felt sick doing this, spying on my own sister, suspecting my own husband, but I needed to know the truth. At 2:15 p.m., Sophie emerged from her building dressed in a way that made my stomach drop. She wore a fitted dress, heels, and had clearly put effort into her hair and makeup. This wasn't her work attire. This was date attire. I followed her as she drove downtown, maintaining a careful distance. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Please, I thought, please let me be wrong. Please let this be anything other than what I think it is. Sophie pulled into the Ritz-Carlton valet parking. I parked across the street and watched her walk into the lobby with confidence, the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. I gave her a 5-minute head start, then followed. The lobby was elegant and busy enough that I could blend in. I saw Sophie get into an elevator and watched the floor indicator. 8th floor. I waited for the next elevator and followed. When I reached the 8th floor, the hallway was empty. I walked slowly, listening. Laughter came from behind one door. A man's deep laugh I recognized instantly. Marcus. And Sophie's lighter giggle. Room 847. The same room number that had been appearing on Marcus's credit card statements for 6 months. I stood outside that door for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to run, to unsee this, to go back to believing my marriage and my relationship with my sister were real. But I'd come too far. I needed the truth. I raised my hand and knocked. Footsteps. The door opened. Marcus stood there, shirtless, his face shifting from post-coital satisfaction to complete shock in less than a second. Lauren, how did you... I pushed past him into the room. Sophie was there, scrambling to button her blouse, her face white with panic. The bed was unmade. Their clothes were scattered. A bottle of champagne sat on the table, half empty. How long? My voice didn't sound like mine. It was too high, too strained. Lauren, let me explain, Marcus started. How long? I screamed it this time. Sophie started crying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We didn't mean for it to happen. How long have you been fucking my husband, Sophie? 2 years, she whispered. It's been 2 years. 2 years. While I'd been supporting her through her broken engagement, through her career changes, through every crisis, she'd been sleeping with my husband. My sister, my baby sister who I'd raised like a daughter, who I'd sacrificed for, who I'd loved unconditionally. I turned to Marcus. 2 years. You've been cheating on me with my sister for 2 years, and I never knew. It just happened, Lauren. We didn't plan it. After Sophie's engagement fell apart, she was so broken, and I was trying to help, and one thing led to another. Don't blame me, Sophie shouted at him. You pursued me. You told me you'd never loved Lauren the way you loved me. You said you married her for her money. The words hung in the air like poison. Marcus's face went pale, and that's when I saw it. A laptop open on the desk behind Sophie. A document visible on the screen. I moved toward it before they could stop me. The document was titled Lauren's Life Insurance, Final Timeline. I read in horror as my world collapsed. June 2024. Finalize plans. Ensure August timing coincides with Lauren's hiking trip to Colorado. Solo trip she's been planning for months. Mid-July. Marcus increases Lauren's life insurance from $3 million to $5 million under guise of updated estate planning. Lauren signs paperwork without questioning. She trusts Marcus completely with financial decisions despite being a financial advisor herself. Ironic. August 15th. Lauren leaves for Colorado hiking trip. Marcus provides detailed itinerary to contact for staging accident. August 17th. Lauren's accident occurs on Devil's Causeway Trail, known for dangerous exposure, frequent accidents, easy to make death look accidental. Fall from cliff. Body may not be found for days. August 18th. Marcus discovers Lauren is missing when she doesn't check in as scheduled. Reports her missing. Appears distraught and concerned. August 20th. Search and rescue finds Lauren's body. Ruled accidental death. Marcus grieves publicly. October 2024. Insurance investigation complete. Routine for large payout. Policy pays out $5 million to Marcus. November 2024. Marcus and Sophie announce relationship, framed as finding comfort in shared grief. Wait appropriate mourning period before marrying. December 2024. Access Lauren's inherited trust, $3.5 million as her legal spouse and executor. Total financial gain. Approximately $9 million split between Marcus and Sophie after Lauren's death. Below the timeline were detailed notes. Devil's Causeway is perfect. Narrow ridge trail, 300-foot drops on both sides, remote location, sketchy in bad weather. Contact has experienced staging hiking accidents. $100,000 payment split. $50K on completion. $50K after insurance payout. Lauren hiking alone is key. No witnesses. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not get air into my lungs. They weren't just having an affair. They'd been planning to murder me. They'd hired someone. They'd chosen the location. They'd timed it to my planned hiking trip. They'd calculated the financial payout. My husband and my sister had spent months plotting my death like it was a business transaction. Lauren. Marcus moved toward me, and I saw calculation in his eyes. He was deciding what to do, whether to come clean, whether to apologize, whether to make sure I didn't leave this room with what I'd just discovered. Stay away from me. My voice was shaking but clear. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos of the laptop screen. Marcus lunged toward me, but I was faster. I'd already photographed the first page. Give me the phone, Lauren. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're planning to kill me. You've hired someone. You've chosen how I'm supposed to die. You're going to push me off a cliff and collect my insurance money. Sophie was sobbing now. We weren't really going to do it. It was just, we were fantasizing. It wasn't real. There's a hired killer mentioned in this document, Sophie. There's a $100,000 payment plan. There are detailed notes about how to make it look accidental. This isn't fantasy. This is premeditated murder. I kept photographing, scrolling through the document, capturing everything. Marcus tried again to grab my phone, and we struggled. He was stronger, but I was desperate. I managed to pull away and send the photos to my personal email and cloud storage before he finally grabbed the phone from me. You shouldn't have seen this, he said, his voice cold now. The mask had fallen completely. The loving husband was gone. In his place was a stranger, calculating, dangerous, desperate. "What are you going to do, Marcus? Kill me now? Right here in this hotel room? How will you explain that?" "We'll say you attacked Sophie. That you came here, saw us together, went crazy with jealousy. That you tried to hurt her, and I defended her. That it was self-defense." He was actually plotting it out loud, calculating how to murder me in this moment and make it look justified. Sophie's face had gone from shocked to horrified. "Marcus, no, we can't." "Shut up, Sophie. This is your fault. If you'd kept your mouth shut about the money, Lauren never would have looked at the laptop." "My fault? You're the one who left it open." They were turning on each other now, the conspiracy fracturing under pressure, and I realized this was my only chance to escape. I ran for the door. Marcus grabbed for me, catching my arm, but I twisted away, leaving skin behind as his nails raked my arm. I made it into the hallway and ran for the stairs. I couldn't risk waiting for an elevator where he could catch me. I took the stairs 2 at a time, hearing Marcus behind me. "Lauren, stop! Let's talk about this." Talk about my planned murder? I kept running, bursting out into the lobby. A security guard noticed my distress and the bleeding scratch on my arm. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "Call the police. My husband is trying to hurt me. I have evidence he's planning to kill me. Please, call 911 now." Marcus appeared in the lobby but stopped when he saw the security guard and multiple witnesses. He couldn't attack me here. Instead, he put on a concerned face and approached slowly. "Lauren, honey, you're not thinking clearly. You're upset about Sophie and me, and I understand. But these accusations? You need help. You're not well." He was trying to gaslight me in front of witnesses, trying to make me look unstable. "I have photos," I said to the security guard. "On my email. Photos of documents showing my husband and my sister planning my murder. They hired someone to kill me. It's all documented." The security guard looked uncertain, but he called for backup and for police. Within minutes, Charlotte Mecklenburg police arrived. I was shaking so badly I could barely speak, but I managed to explain what I'd discovered. "Officers, this is a misunderstanding," Marcus said smoothly. "My wife has been under a lot of stress. She's struggling with some mental health issues. She followed my sister-in-law here and—" "I'm not his sister-in-law having an innocent meeting," I interrupted. "I'm his wife, and that woman upstairs is my sister who's been having an affair with my husband for 2 years. And I have photographic evidence on my email showing they've been planning to murder me next month." One of the officers, a woman named Officer Jennifer Stevens, looked at me carefully. "Ma'am, do you actually have this evidence?" "Yes. On my email, they were planning to stage my death as a hiking accident in Colorado. They've hired someone. There's a timeline. There are payment details. It's all in a document on their laptop in room 847. Officer Stevens looked at her partner. "Room 847? We all went back upstairs with the officers. Sophie was still in the room, fully dressed now, crying hysterically. The laptop was still open, but the incriminating document had been closed. "Open the document again," Officer Stevens instructed. "I don't know what she's talking about," Sophie said. "There's no document about murder. She's crazy. She came here and attacked us and I have photos," I said. I logged into my email on Officer Stevens's phone and showed her. The photos were clear. The timeline, the notes about Devil's Causeway, the hired killer, the financial calculations. Officer Stevens's face hardened as she read. "Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Harding, you're both being detained for questioning. This is evidence of conspiracy to commit murder." Marcus tried one more time to charm his way out. "Officers, that document is fiction. It's a plot for a novel Sophie's been working on. My wife is taking it out of context." "A novel?" Officer Stevens cut him off. "A novel with your wife's actual name? Her actual planned hiking trip? real insurance policy amounts, and specific trail locations? That's a hell of a coincidence, Mr. Mitchell. They were both taken into custody. I gave a full statement at the police station, turned over all the photos, and provided my credit card statements showing Marcus's hotel charges, the airline confirmation for the Bora Bora trip, and everything else I'd found. Detective Marcus Williams from the Major Crimes Unit reviewed everything and looked at me with a combination of sympathy and shock. Mrs. Mitchell, your husband and sister were absolutely planning to kill you. This documentation is some of the clearest evidence of conspiracy to commit murder I've seen. They weren't just talking about it. They'd hired someone, set a date, planned logistics. You're alive right now because you followed your instincts and found this evidence before they could execute their plan. What happens now? I asked. We're executing a search warrant on their phones, computers, and communications. If they've been in contact with a hitman, we'll find it. We're also looking into their financial records to see if any money has already been transferred. And Mrs. Mitchell, you need protection. Until we identify and arrest whoever they hired, you're still in danger. If this resonates with you, if you've ever suspected something terrible and needed proof, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happened next, the evidence we found, the hired killer we arrested, the trial that sent them both to prison, might help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. Over the next 72 hours, as I stayed in a police safe house, the investigation uncovered the full scope of Marcus and Sophie's conspiracy. Each discovery was more devastating than the last. First, forensic analysis of Marcus's phone and computer revealed months of communication with a man named James Riley, a former Army Ranger turned contract killer operating out of Colorado. The messages were damning. Marcus to Riley, March 2024. Need to discuss a project. High payout for specialized work. Staged accident in Colorado. Are you available? Riley to Marcus, March 24. Depends on specifics. What's the target? Marcus. My wife. Hiking accident. She's an experienced hiker, so it needs to look convincing. Devil's Causeway Trail. August timeframe. Riley. Devil's Causeway is doable. Narrow ridge, exposure, easy to stage a fall. $150K for a clean job. Half up front, half on completion. Marcus. $100K total. Take it or leave it. Riley. $100K works if you provide detailed reconnaissance, her hiking experience, fitness level, exact itinerary, emergency contacts. I need to know her behavior patterns to make it believable. The messages continued through May and June, with Marcus providing increasingly detailed information about me, my hiking habits, my tendency to hike alone for mental clarity, my planned August trip, even photos of me on previous hikes so Riley could study my movement patterns. Second, investigators found bank records showing Marcus had already transferred $50,000 to an offshore account controlled by Riley. The payment was disguised as consulting fees, but was clearly the first half of the murder payment. Third, and this was the most painful discovery, they found the affair had started exactly as Sophie said. 2 years ago, shortly after her broken engagement. But it wasn't the spontaneous comfort-turned-attraction they'd claimed. Marcus had deliberately targeted Sophie, knowing she was vulnerable and that corrupting her would help isolate me. Text messages from early in their affair showed Marcus's calculated approach. Marcus to Sophie, July 2022. Lauren talks about you constantly. She loves you so much. She'd do anything for you. Sophie to Marcus, July T2. She raised me. She's more like a mother than a sister. I owe her everything. Marcus. That kind of devotion is beautiful and rare. You're lucky to have her.
2 weeks later, after Marcus had seduced Sophie. Marcus to Sophie. Don't feel guilty about us. Lauren doesn't need to know. We can have this, and she can keep believing in her perfect life. Everyone wins. Sophie. I feel terrible. She's my sister. She loves you? Marcus. She loves the image of me. She loves security and success. But you and I, we have real passion, real connection. She'd never understand what we have. He'd manipulated Sophie's guilt, her insecurity, her grief from her broken engagement, and her complicated feelings about being the little sister who'd always been rescued by me. He'd turned her gratitude into resentment, her love into betrayal. Fourth, investigators discovered that Marcus's real estate development business was actually failing. The successful facade was maintained through increasingly risky loans and leveraged properties. He was months away from bankruptcy, owed millions to investors, and was desperately seeking a way out. That's when he'd calculated my worth. $3 million in life insurance, soon to be $5 million after the increase he'd planned, $3.5 million in inherited investments, approximately $2 million in joint assets and equity. Nearly $10 million total if I died. Bankruptcy or windfall, failure or fortune. My death was his solution to financial ruin. Fifth, and perhaps most chilling, investigators found Marcus had been researching my death for over a year. Since shortly after Aunt Catherine's inheritance changed my net worth dramatically. His search history showed: how long do life insurance companies investigate suspicious deaths? Do insurance policies pay out for hiking accidents? Devil's Causeway Trail fatalities. How to hire a hitman dark web. Can conspirators be convicted without physical evidence of murder? What evidence proves premeditation? He'd been planning this methodically, researching legal vulnerabilities, studying how to commit the perfect murder, and he'd brought Sophie into the conspiracy because he needed an alibi witness, someone who'd vouch for his grief, his innocence, his devastation when I tragically died in Colorado. The sixth discovery came when police arrested James Riley at his home in Denver. Riley, facing life in prison for conspiracy to commit murder, immediately agreed to cooperate. His testimony was chilling. Marcus Mitchell contacted me in March via an encrypted messaging service. He wanted his wife killed, but made to look like a hiking accident. He was very specific. He wanted it to happen on Devil's Causeway because he'd researched the trail and knew it was dangerous enough that a fatal fall would be believable. He provided detailed information about his wife's hiking experience, her planned solo trip, her emergency protocols. He paid me $50,000 up front, with another $50,000 due after completion. He was one of the most cold-blooded clients I've ever worked with. He discussed killing his wife like it was a business transaction. No emotion, just calculation. Riley also revealed that Marcus had contacted him again after I'd discovered their plan at the hotel, trying to accelerate the timeline. He called me in a panic after his wife found evidence. He wanted me to come to Charlotte immediately and make it look like a home invasion or robbery gone wrong. He offered an additional $50,000 to do it within 48 hours. That's when I realized he was desperate and sloppy, so I stopped responding. Desperate clients make mistakes that get contractors caught. The seventh discovery was perhaps the most personally devastating. Investigators found a journal Sophie had kept, a leather-bound notebook where she'd processed her guilt and rationalized her betrayal. Reading it broke something in me. Lauren has always had everything. She's smart, successful, beautiful, confident. She got our parents' approval, got their inheritance, built this perfect life. I've always been the screw-up little sister who needed rescuing. When Marcus chose me, when he said he loved me more than her, it felt like finally, I was first choice instead of consolation prize. I know it's wrong. I know she'd be devastated, but for once in my life,
I want to be the one who wins. She'd framed my murder as some kind of sibling rivalry victory, as if killing me would prove she was better than me, as if my death would make her first choice, instead of acknowledging she was choosing to betray someone who'd only ever loved her. The eighth discovery came from Marcus's personal files, a detailed post-murder plan he'd written titled After Lauren. It outlined how he and Sophie would present their relationship to family and friends, how they'd manage my estate, how they'd spend the insurance money, and even how they'd redecorate our house to erase Lauren's aesthetic and make it ours. They'd planned my funeral. They'd discussed what eulogies to give. They'd talked about whether to spread my ashes or have a burial, settling on burial because it's more permanent and final. They'd been planning my death with the same attention to detail most people use to plan weddings. Detective Williams delivered each discovery to me personally, watching my face as I processed the extent of their conspiracy. After showing me Marcus's After Lauren document, he said quietly, "Mrs.
Mitchell, I've worked major crimes for 15 years. This is one of the most cold-blooded, calculated murder plots I've ever seen. Your husband spent over a year planning your death. He weaponized your sister against you. He hired a professional killer. He researched every detail to make sure he'd get away with it. If you hadn't followed Sophie that day, if you hadn't seen that open laptop, you'd be dead in 2 months, and everyone would think it was a tragic hiking accident." "I know," I whispered. "I keep thinking about that. I keep thinking about going to Colorado, hiking that trail, and having a stranger push me off a cliff, falling 300 feet, dying alone in the wilderness, and Marcus collecting millions while pretending to grieve. But that didn't happen. You trusted your instincts. You followed the evidence. You saved your own life." He was right. I'd saved myself, but I'd also lost everything: my marriage, my sister, my belief that people I loved could truly love me back. The woman I'd been before June 18th, 2024, was gone. In her place was someone harder, colder, more damaged. Someone who'd seen the monster behind the masks and could never unsee it. Building the criminal case against Marcus and Sophie took 3 months. Charlotte Mecklenburg PD worked with the FBI since the conspiracy crossed state lines. Riley was in Colorado, and Assistant District Attorney Patricia Morrison assembled what she called one of the most documented conspiracy to commit murder cases in North Carolina history. "Mrs. Mitchell," Ada Morrison told me during our first meeting, "your husband and sister made a critical mistake. They documented everything: the timeline, the financial calculations, the communications with Riley, Sophie's journal. Most criminals are smart enough to keep their plans verbal and off-record. Your husband, perhaps because he's used to documenting business deals, wrote everything down. That documentation is going to convict them." "What are the charges exactly?" "Against Marcus: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud related to the insurance increase he was planning, and witness tampering for trying to manipulate Sophie's testimony. Against Sophie: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, accessory before the fact, and fraud. Against James Riley: conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder for hire." "What kind of sentences are we looking at?" "If convicted on all counts, Marcus is looking at life in prison without parole. Sophie could get 25-40 years since she was a conspirator but not the primary planner. Riley will likely get 30-40 years with his cooperation, reducing his sentence slightly." But the prosecution needed more than just documents. They needed to prove intent, show the progression of the conspiracy, and demonstrate that Marcus and Sophie genuinely planned to kill me, not just fantasized about it. The first element of building the case involved forensic financial analysis. A forensic accountant named Michael Chen reviewed Marcus's business records
and discovered the full scope of his financial desperation. Mr. Mitchell owes $4.7 million to various lenders and investors, Chen testified during the preliminary hearing. His development projects have massive cost overruns. He's used creative accounting to hide the extent of the problems, but his business is functionally bankrupt. If Lauren Mitchell died, the life insurance alone would pay off his most pressing debts. Combined with access to her inheritance and assets, he'd emerge from financial ruin into wealth. The motive is clear and substantial. The second element involved proving Sophie's active participation rather than just passive knowledge. Prosecutors found text messages where Sophie researched hiking accident statistics, looked up Devil's Causeway specifically, and even suggested timing the murder around my planned trip. Sophie to Marcus, April 2024. Lauren just told me she's planning a solo hiking trip to Colorado in August. She's going to Devil's Causeway. Isn't that the trail you mentioned? Marcus. Perfect. That moves up our timeline. Tell me everything she said about the trip. Sophie. She's going alone. Wants space to think and decompress from work stress. She's hiking Devil's Causeway on August 17th. She even joked that it's called the Devil's Causeway for a reason. Super dangerous. Marcus. And she's going alone? No hiking partners? Sophie. Yes, she says she hikes better alone. No one to slow her down or distract her. Marcus. This is it. This is the opportunity. Make sure she doesn't change her plans. Sophie had actively helped coordinate the timing. She'd encouraged me to take the solo trip, knowing what would happen on that trail. That made her more than just a passive conspirator. She was an active participant in planning my murder. The third element required proving Marcus actually intended to follow through, not just fantasize. The $50,000 payment to Riley was crucial, but prosecutors also found evidence that Marcus had been putting other pieces in place. He'd increased my life insurance to $5 million in May, using forged signatures on forms claiming I'd agreed. The insurance company confirmed he'd expedited processing and paid extra for immediate coverage. He'd updated his will and estate documents to ensure he'd be sole beneficiary and executor, even changing documents I'd previously signed that left portions to Sophie and charity. He'd researched widow support groups and grief counseling to establish his post-murder cover story. He'd actually purchased plane tickets to Colorado for August 16th, ostensibly to surprise me on my hiking trip, but actually to be nearby when Riley completed the job. The fourth element involved my testimony. Ada Morrison prepared me for what she called the most important testimony I'd ever give. Lauren, the defense is going to argue that you misinterpreted the document, that it was fantasy role-play between lovers, not a genuine plan, that Marcus never intended to actually kill you. You need to walk the jury through every red flag, every discovery, every moment when you knew something was terribly wrong. Make them understand this wasn't fantasy. It was premeditated murder that only failed because you discovered it in time. I spent weeks preparing, organizing evidence chronologically, building a narrative that showed the conspiracy's progression from affair to murder plot. The fifth element was Riley's cooperation. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Riley provided detailed testimony about his communications with Marcus. Marcus Mitchell hired me to kill his wife in March 2024. He specifically requested Devil's Causeway in Colorado because of its reputation for fatal hiking accidents. He provided extensive reconnaissance, photos of his wife, her hiking patterns, her fitness level, her emergency protocols. He paid $50,000 up front via cryptocurrency transfer. He was supposed to pay the remaining $50,000 after completion. He wanted it done on August 17th when his wife would be hiking alone. There was never any doubt about his intent. He wanted her dead, wanted it to look accidental, and wanted to collect her life insurance and inheritance. The sixth element involved victim impact statements from those who loved me, my law partner, my friends, Even Marcus's own brother, who was horrified by what Marcus had done, all provided statements about my character and the destruction Marcus's betrayal had caused. My childhood friend Rachel testified. Lauren raised her sister after their parents died. She sacrificed her 20s to make sure Sophie had everything: college, support, love. Sophie repaying that by helping murder Lauren is the ultimate betrayal. And Marcus? He married Lauren for her money and success while planning her death from the beginning. The seventh element was preparing me for defense attacks. Marcus's attorney would claim I was a vengeful ex-wife, exaggerating an affair into attempted murder. Sophie's attorney would claim she was manipulated by Marcus and never genuinely intended violence. "They're going to paint you as bitter and vindictive," Ada Morrison warned. "They'll claim you manufactured evidence or took innocent documents out of context. You need to remain calm, factual, and detailed. Let the evidence speak for itself." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for September 15th. The trial would likely begin in January 2025. I had months to prepare for the confrontation that would determine whether my husband and sister spent the rest of their lives in prison or somehow talked their way to freedom. The preliminary hearing began on September 15th, 2024, at Mecklenburg County Courthouse. Judge Thomas Bryant presided. The courtroom was packed. Media, colleagues from my firm, friends, and morbidly curious observers drawn by the sensational nature of the case. Woman discovers husband and sister planning her murder. Marcus and Sophie sat at separate defense tables with their respective attorneys. Marcus wore a suit and attempted his usual charm, but there was desperation in his eyes. Sophie looked broken, thin, pale, with none of the vibrant energy I'd always associated with my little sister. Ada Morrison delivered the opening statement. "Your Honor, this is a case about greed disguised as love. Marcus Mitchell married Lauren Mitchell for her success and money. When his business began failing, he calculated that his wife was worth more dead than alive, nearly $10 million in life insurance, inheritance, and assets. He enlisted his wife's younger sister, Sophie Harding, as his accomplice and lover. Together, they planned Lauren's murder with chilling precision, hiring a contract killer, choosing a remote hiking trail known for fatal accidents, and setting a date. The only reason Lauren Mitchell is alive today is because she followed her instincts, discovered their plan by chance, and found irrefutable evidence before they could execute her murder. Marcus's attorney, Robert Hayes, argued the evidence was misinterpreted. "Your Honor, my client had an affair, which he deeply regrets. But an affair is not attempted murder. The document Mrs. Mitchell found was fantasy role play between lovers, a dark game that never would have been acted upon. There's no evidence Mr. Mitchell ever genuinely intended to harm his wife." Sophie's attorney, Jennifer Park, painted her as a victim. Sophie Harding was manipulated by Marcus Mitchell, who preyed on her vulnerability after a broken engagement. She was groomed by an older, more sophisticated man who twisted her gratitude toward her sister into something dark. She's a victim here, too. Then came the evidence. Ada Morrison methodically walked through the conspiracy's progression. The credit card statements showing 6 months of hotel meetings. The airline tickets to Bora Bora purchased for Marcus and Sophie. The encrypted messages with James Riley detailing murder-for-hire negotiations. The $50,000 cryptocurrency payment. The timeline document with detailed plans for my August accident. Sophie's journal entries revealing her awareness and participation. Most devastatingly, they played a recorded phone call between Marcus and Riley from July 2024. Charlotte PD had obtained warrants to monitor Riley's phone after finding his connection to Marcus. Marcus, July 12th. "Is everything set for August 17th? Riley. "I'll be positioned on Devil's Causeway Trail. She'll be hiking alone per her itinerary. I'll make contact near the narrowest section around mile marker 3.5. Quick push, Long fall. Looks accidental. In and out. Marcus. And there's no way it'll look suspicious? Riley. Devil's Causeway has multiple fatalities per year. Solo hiker loses footing on narrow ridge. Story writes itself. You'll need to seem appropriately devastated when search and rescue finds her body. Marcus. I'm good at performing grief. Had plenty of practice at my father's funeral. Riley. Then we're all set. Final payment on completion. The courtroom was silent. The recorded conversation was damning. Marcus wasn't fantasizing about my death. He was coordinating logistical details with a hired killer. Then I testified. I walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and looked directly at the jury, present for the preliminary hearing to gauge prosecution strength. I told them everything: meeting Marcus, marrying him believing he loved me, raising Sophie and loving her unconditionally, noticing the red flags, following Sophie to the hotel, finding the timeline document. When I saw that document, I testified, I realized the two people I loved most in the world had spent months planning to murder me. They'd calculated my worth. They'd hired a killer. They'd chosen how I would die. They'd planned my funeral. My husband was going to push me off a cliff in Colorado and pretend to grieve while collecting millions. And my sister, the little girl I'd raised, who I'd sacrificed for, was helping him. Ada Morrison asked, Mrs. Mitchell, defense attorneys suggest this was fantasy role play. Do you believe that? No. The document was too detailed. They'd hired Riley. Marcus had transferred $50,000. He'd increased my life insurance. He'd researched the trail. He'd purchased plane tickets to be near the accident site. Riley had surveillance photos of me. This wasn't fantasy. It was premeditated murder interrupted only by my accidental discovery. Marcus's attorney cross-examined aggressively. Mrs. Mitchell, you admit you were spying on your husband and sister? Following them? Invading their privacy? I was following red flags. My husband was lying about his whereabouts. My sister was lying to me constantly. Credit card statements showed hotel rooms. I followed evidence. But you acknowledge this is a bitter divorce situation? That you're financially motivated to portray an affair as attempted murder? I have photographic evidence of a timeline document detailing my planned murder. I have recordings of Marcus coordinating with a hired killer. I have financial records showing he paid $50,000 to that killer. This isn't a bitter divorce. It's documented conspiracy to commit murder. Sophie's attorney tried to separate her from Marcus. Ms. Harding, did you genuinely want your sister dead? Or were you manipulated by Marcus Mitchell? Sophie, crying on the stand, said, I never thought he'd actually do it. I thought we were just talking, fantasizing. When I saw the payments to Riley, when I heard him coordinating details, I knew it was real and I was terrified. But I was in too deep. I didn't know how to stop it. Ada Morrison destroyed that defense with Sophie's own text messages. Sophie to Marcus, June 2024. Only 8 more weeks until Lauren's trip. Are you nervous? Marcus. No. Riley's reliable. This will work. Sophie. What if something goes wrong? What if they investigate? Marcus. They won't. Devil's Causeway has multiple deaths yearly. It's perfect. By September, you and I will be together permanently. No more hiding. Sophie. I can't wait. Lauren's been so suffocating lately. Always checking on me, always wanting to bond. Once she's gone, I'll finally be free. The jury's faces showed disgust. Sophie had actively looked forward to my death. She wasn't a manipulated victim. She was a willing conspirator. James Riley testified via video from prison. Marcus Mitchell hired me to kill his wife in March 2024. He paid me $50,000 up front with another $50,000 due upon completion. He provided detailed reconnaissance about his wife's habits and planned a hiking trip. He specifically requested August 17th on Devil's Causeway Trail. He wanted it to look like an accident, a fall from the narrow ridge. He was cold, calculating, and professional in his communication. There was never any doubt he wanted his wife dead. The defense tried to suggest Riley was lying to reduce his sentence, but prosecutors showed the cryptocurrency transfers, the photos Marcus had sent Riley of me, and the detailed itinerary Marcus had provided. After 3 days of testimony, Judge Bryant delivered his ruling. I find overwhelming probable cause to believe Marcus Mitchell and Sophie Harding conspired to murder Lauren Mitchell. The evidence is extensive, detailed, and clearly shows intent and planning. Both defendants will be held without bail pending trial. This court finds they pose a danger to the community and specifically to Mrs. Mitchell. Marcus's face crumbled. Sophie sobbed, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just hollow emptiness. These people had planned my death. The trial would determine if they'd spend their lives in prison, but no sentence would repair what they'd broken in me. As deputies led them away, Marcus turned and looked at me. His expression was hard, unrepentant. "You ruined everything," he said. "We almost had the perfect life." "You almost had my money," I corrected. "I was never part of your perfect life. I was just the obstacle you planned to eliminate." Sophie tried to speak, but I turned away. I didn't want to hear her apologies or excuses. She'd helped plan my murder. There was no apology that could bridge that chasm. I walked out of that courthouse with my attorney and my real friends, the ones who'd never betrayed me, and prepared for the trial that would determine my husband and sister's fate. The trial took place in January 2025, 6 months after I'd discovered Marcus and Sophie's conspiracy. The intervening months had been spent in therapy, rebuilding my shattered sense of trust, and watching as prosecutors built an insurmountable case. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented every piece of evidence, the timeline document, the messages with Riley, the financial records, Sophie's journal, the recorded phone conversations. They brought in forensic accountants to detail Marcus's financial desperation. They presented testimony from friends and colleagues about my relationship with Sophie and Marcus before the betrayal. Most powerfully, they showed the jury photos of Devil's Causeway Trail, the narrow ridge, the 300-foot drops, the dangerous conditions. "This is where Lauren Mitchell was supposed to die," Ada Morrison told the jury. On August 17, 2024, she would have been hiking this trail alone. James Riley would have pushed her off this cliff. Her body would have fallen 300 feet. It would have looked exactly like the hiking accidents that occur here regularly. Marcus Mitchell would have collected $5 million in life insurance, plus millions more from her inheritance. He'd have grieved publicly, married Sophie within a year, and lived happily on the money he'd gained from murdering his wife. The defense tried everything. They claimed the evidence was circumstantial. They suggested I'd fabricated or exaggerated it. They painted Marcus as a man having a midlife crisis affair, not a murderer. They portrayed Sophie as a naive victim manipulated by an older man. But the jury didn't buy it. On January 24, 2025, after deliberating for just 6 hours, they returned with verdicts. Marcus Mitchell, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud, and witness tampering. Sophie Harding, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and accessory before the fact. Judge Bryant scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. On March 7, 2025, I gave my victim impact statement. Marcus Mitchell married me for my success and money. When his business failed, he decided killing me was easier than divorce. He spent over a year planning my murder with the same attention to detail he used for his real estate deals. He researched methods, hired a professional killer, and coordinated logistics. He manipulated my sister into betraying me, weaponizing her insecurities and her gratitude into something dark. Sophie Harding, my baby sister who I raised after our parents died, repaid my love by helping plan my murder. She had an affair with my husband. She looked forward to my death. She actively helped coordinate timing. She's not a victim. She's a conspirator who happened to get caught. If I hadn't followed Sophie that day, if I hadn't seen that open laptop, I'd be dead right now. Buried after a tragic hiking accident. Marcus would be collecting millions. Sophie would be comforting my grieving widower. And no one would ever know they'd murdered me. I want the maximum sentences for both of them. I want them to spend decades in prison thinking about the sister and wife they betrayed, the life they tried to steal, and the money they'll never get. Judge Bryant's sentences were harsh. Marcus Mitchell, life in prison without possibility of parole for 40 years. Mr. Mitchell, you are one of the most cold-blooded, calculating criminals I've encountered. You married for money, planned your wife's murder for over a year, hired a professional killer, and showed no remorse. You will spend the majority of your remaining life in prison. Sophie Harding, 35 years in prison without parole for 25 years. Ms. Harding, you betrayed the sister who raised you. You helped plan her murder. You looked forward to her death. Your youth and claims of manipulation do not excuse your active participation in conspiracy to commit murder. By the time you're eligible for parole, you'll be 60 years old. James Riley, 40 years with parole eligibility after 30 years, reduced sentence for cooperation. The financial consequences were equally satisfying. I sued Marcus and Sophie in civil court for emotional distress, fraud, and conspiracy. I was awarded $8 million in damages, every penny Marcus had, plus Sophie's inheritance from our parents, which our estate attorney confirmed she'd forfeit due to her crimes against me. Marcus's failed real estate empire was liquidated, with all assets going toward my judgment. Sophie lost her apartment, her car, her savings. They were left with nothing but prison cells. More importantly, I reclaimed my life. I continued my successful career as a financial advisor. I wrote a book about recognizing financial motives in domestic relationships that became a bestseller. I founded a nonprofit that helps women protect their assets in cases of domestic violence or exploitation. I also began the slow process of healing. Therapy helped me understand that Marcus and Sophie's betrayal wasn't about me. It was about their greed, their character flaws, their moral bankruptcy. I learned to trust again, though cautiously. I built new relationships with people who valued me for more than my money or success. 5 years after the trial, I'm thriving. I'm engaged to a kind man who supported me through the trial and its aftermath. I've rebuilt my relationship with extended family who were horrified by Sophie's betrayal. My career is more successful than ever. And every day, I wake up alive and free is a victory over the two people who tried to steal my life. Marcus and Sophie sit in separate North Carolina prisons, serving their lengthy sentences. Neither has shown genuine remorse. Marcus still claims he never would have actually done it. Sophie still frames herself as a victim of manipulation. But I know the truth. They planned my murder methodically, hired a professional to execute it, and would have succeeded if I hadn't followed my instincts and found their evidence by chance. I survived not because they had mercy, but because I was smart enough to see the red flags and brave enough to investigate. 6 years have passed since I followed Sophie to that hotel and discovered my husband and sister were planning to kill me. I've had time to heal, reflect, and understand what happened and how I survived. These are the lessons I want to share.
Lessons that might save someone else's life. First, trust your instincts about behavioral changes. For months before discovering the conspiracy, I noticed red flags: phone secrecy, unexplained absences, financial irregularities, lies about whereabouts. I rationalized everyone because I didn't want to believe my husband and sister could betray me. But my subconscious was screaming warnings. If multiple things feel wrong in your relationship, investigate. Your instincts are often seeing patterns your conscious mind wants to deny. Second, follow the money. Financial desperation creates dangerous motives. Marcus's business was failing, and my life insurance plus inheritance represented his escape from bankruptcy. When partners suddenly become interested in increasing your life insurance, updating estate documents, or asking detailed questions about your assets, ask yourself why. Large life insurance policies without clear need should always raise questions. Third, document everything before confronting. When I found that open laptop with the timeline document, I photographed everything before Marcus could delete it. Those photos became crucial evidence. If you discover something suspicious, document it first. Take photos, forward emails to yourself, copy files. Evidence can disappear quickly if confronters are warned. Fourth, conspiracies often involve people close to you. Marcus didn't work alone. He weaponized my own sister against me. He knew Sophie was my closest confidant and that corrupting her would isolate me completely. Be aware that abusers and financial predators often recruit family members or friends to help execute their plans or provide alibi support. Fifth, even family can betray you for money. The hardest part of this experience wasn't Marcus's betrayal. I'd married him as an adult. The hardest part was Sophie's betrayal. I'd raised her, sacrificed for her, loved her unconditionally, and she helped plan my murder for money, and because she resented always being the little sister. Family relationships don't guarantee loyalty when money is involved. Most importantly, I learned that survival sometimes comes down to being in the right place at the right moment. If I hadn't followed Sophie that specific day, if Marcus hadn't left his laptop open, if I hadn't photographed that screen before he could stop me, I'd be dead. Luck matters, but so does preparation. I noticed red flags. I followed evidence. I acted on my suspicions instead of dismissing them. To everyone watching who's noticed financial irregularities in their relationship, who feels like their partner is suddenly interested in their life insurance or inheritance, who suspects something is terribly wrong, please investigate. Hire a forensic accountant, check financial records, document suspicious behavior. Protect your assets legally. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, if you feel unsafe. Consult an attorney about protecting inherited assets. Make sure life insurance beneficiaries reflect your actual wishes. Thank you for watching my story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe. And if you suspect your partner is financially motivated to harm you, please take precautions immediately. Remember, I followed my sister and found my husband. The man waiting there broke me, but discovering his plan saved me. Sometimes the worst betrayals come from those closest to you. Sometimes survival requires seeing the monsters behind the masks. Trust your instincts. Follow the evidence. Save yourself.